Went through boot camp, got ready to ship out. We all had our orders for Vietnam, and I got picked for a school, so I got sent to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey for a language. So I picked up a secondary MOS of field interrogator interpreter in Vietnamese. And you were talking about music. That happened to be May '67, the Monterey Rock Festival. We saw it all, and it was all free. Everybody but the Beatles was there. It was great. Shipped over to Vietnam, got there on June 7th, 1967. So I got to Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 1st Marines, the 1st Platoon, about the 15th or 16th of June. I believe the first patrol I went on, we took a little fire from one side and had one casualty, a KIA, and they filed us new guys up and said, made certain we looked at the poor guy that got dinged and said, that's what happens when you don't move fast enough. You got to see this. We got back to the base and they said, you know, young guy, you're lucky. We're going to give you a choice of what you can do over here. Do you want to walk point or carry a radio? And I heard a lot about point. So I just said, show me how to turn it on. So I became a radio operator then, and that's what I did for the rest of my tour. Stayed with the CP group and I liked trying to figure out, know what was going on. I got the information over the radio. So that was my start. I went through there. We stayed in an easy area south of Da Nang, the Horseshoe area. We saw some action there, but it wasn't too bad. And then we got OPCON to the 3rd Marine Division, which was up on the DMZ, began to move north. And it got progressively worse as we went north. Spent some time at Con Tien, which was one of the northernmost outposts. Took a lot of shelling there. Some patrols that didn't work too well either. And then we were there for the Tet events of 1968, and we were the reactionary force for the battle for Hue. And Alpha Company went into Hue and got decimated pretty much quickly. We went in, our platoon, 1st Platoon, went in with 53 people, which was a pretty full complement for us. And 3 days later, there were 9 of us left still standing in there, and I think 3 of those weren't wounded yet. So by the 18th, I have a picture I had taken where there were, I think, 20 of us that had either been replaced or come back. So there were, in our platoon, we had 20 3 weeks later that we were back up to a half strength. And went through that fight for a month, and then a couple of months later, we went to Quezon Son in Operation Pegasus to supposedly relieve that siege, which really wasn't a siege. But there was some action there, and went on my last patrol there with one of the scout snipers. We had were on Hill 861 South and had to be resupplied by helicopter, and we knew we had just a short window to do this, make this transfer, because the NVA had mortars zeroed in on our LZ. So they would drop sling loads pallet loads of supplies. And they hovered too long one day, and they had to drop the sling from a hover, and our supplies were in there, and they were mostly all right, but there were a couple of Mermite containers of ice cream, and they broke open. So we were eating the ice cream off the ground, and we got mad. And the scout snipers put together a patrol to go out and find these mortars that were bothering us every day. So we went out, 4 of us went out, and I asked my lieutenant, and he said no. And then we asked the company commander, Lieutenant Smith, General Smith, who was here, and he said, good idea. So we went out. Couldn't find the snipers, but they called the rest of our platoon out later on in the day and sent us back. And we were just going down the backside of the ridge we were on, and the mortars opened up then and took away, shot the pieces out of our platoon again. So a bunch of us got medevac that day, and that was the end of it for me. That was my 3rd one. So General Smith was kind enough to say, get on the plane and go. We took a lot of casualties. I mean, this particular company really got to see the battle. They got to see Vietnam. The timing was important from 67 to 68, and it was a crescendo. Things were changing rapidly. The amount of boot camp training went from 12 weeks to 8 weeks in a couple of months after I went through because they needed more replacements so quickly. That's when they began to fly them over rather than ship them over also. So it was an enlightening experience for a young Catholic boy. I go to these reunions occasionally. I didn't go for probably 30 years to one, but they're pretty cathartic now. It's most of us, it was kind of hard to get all the way home. A lot of us still aren't all the way home. And these things, these reunions now are probably the best psychotherapy that we could use, we could find. When I came home, I wanted to be at the airport before my family got there. And so I was sitting front and center in front of the doors. You walk in, my dress greens, all my ribbons on and stuff. And my mom and dad and my brother walked in, and my mother looked right at me, right on going. I just said, "Hey, where are you going?" And then she came back, and I could always make her cry after that because she didn't recognize me when I came back. It has a defining effect on you, the more combat you see. I've seen people here now in our unit that I considered Superman over there. These people were bigger than life. Our gunnery sergeant, Gunnery John Conley, mountain of a man, totally fearless. And he was such an example to the rest of us that he saved lives by just being who he was. It's impossible to put these people on paper. They're so big. We had another lieutenant that got killed over there, Lieutenant Courtney, should have been president. He had all the requirements, all the smarts, he had all the vision, he had the charisma, he had command presence. Nothing lacking in the man, he was just too aggressive. I didn't do anything for a long time. Until about 1980, I think I joined the DAV, and they're, as far as I'm concerned, the best organization in the United States. So they helped me a lot. And since then, I've joined the VFW, the Purple Heart Association, and I stay as a more or less non-active member, but I'm a member. Yeah.
I think you'd watch this Ken Burns piece. You can watch any of that?
I haven't seen any of Ken Burns' stuff yet, no.
It'll premiere on September 17th, and it's,
I'll watch it.
Will you?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I read a lot. I've tried to read everything on the war. Still trying to understand it.
It'll be hard to watch it, though. I mean,
it depends upon what the content is. Some things can move you to tears so quickly. It's amazing. You think you're inured to some of this stuff after all these years, and it's not far from the surface, really. It's just always there. I walk into this room and see some of these people you haven't seen in 40 or 50 years. If you ever had any need, you knew there would be no question of them helping you out, no matter what the circumstances were. And these guys they were so well trained with what they did. With the right leadership, there's very little that they could not accomplish. And we had that too. I've always said that our leaders were the sole reason that most of us are still alive, because that's what really won the wars over there was our line of combat, our field level officers. They were, with very few exceptions in the Marine Corps, absolutely outstanding. My platoon commander was the son of a admiral who'd gone through West Point. I never saw him disturbed over there under any of that, the heaviest combat. He smoked his pipe and thought, I've got everything I need. Amazing people. Yeah. So, well, I'll say very freely that I was no hero, but I served in the company.